Married man. When your wife took everything. How did she react when you became rich? Story 1. My wife emptied our joint accounts 2 days before she filed. I mean everything. Savings, the emergency fund, even the little vacation jar cash we kept in a kitchen drawer. When I confronted her, she smiled like she'd already won. "You'll land on your feet," she said. "You're good at improvising." Then she moved into her sister's place and started telling everyone I was financially abusive. I slept on a friend's couch, worked my boring warehouse job, and tried not to choke on rage. The divorce settlement finished me off. She kept the house, the furniture, the dog, even the espresso machine I bought before we met. I walked away with a dented Honda and a box of mismatched forks. 6 months later, my buddy convinced me to help him flip a batch of returned pallets. Random merchandise from big retailers. It was dumb, messy work. But I got obsessed. I learned what sold, what didn't, how to photograph, how to negotiate shipping. 2 years later, I wasn't flipping pallets anymore. I had a warehouse lease and contracts. The day I bought my first new truck, she showed up at my warehouse in heels like we were meeting for dinner. She stared at the loading docks like they were a movie set. "Wow," she whispered. "So this is yours?" Then her face changed, like she'd swallowed something sour. "We should talk," she said, suddenly soft. "I always believed in you." I laughed. Not loud. Just enough. Her cheeks flushed. "Don't be like that. We were young. I did what I had to do." "What you had to do," I said, "was take my last $100 and leave me without a bed." She reached for my arm. "You're rich now. We could fix things." I stepped back and pointed at the security camera. "Smile," I told her. "This time I'm documenting everything." She snapped. Full mask off. "You owe me," she hissed. "I built you. You buried me," I said, and waved to my manager to call security. When they walked her out, she screamed my name across the dock like I was the villain in her story. And I realized something terrifyingly peaceful. She didn't miss me. She missed the ending she thought she deserved. Story 2. My wife took everything in the divorce, but not because she was clever, because I was exhausted. I signed papers just to stop the fighting. She got the condo, the retirement account, the nicer car. I got weekends with our son and a studio apartment that smelled like old paint. A year later, I started dating again. Quietly. I wasn't looking for fireworks, just a life that didn't feel like walking through broken glass. That's when my coworker introduced me to her cousin, Lena, who ran a small accounting firm. Lena had this calm confidence, like she'd already survived the worst and refused to be dramatic about it. One night, while I vented about how I'd been wiped out, she asked, "Do you still have your old business ideas written down?" I laughed. "In a notebook somewhere." "Why?" "Because," she said, "you weren't wiped out. You were interrupted." She helped me rebuild my credit, set up an LLC, and bid on a small local contract for supply deliveries. I started with a rented van, then 2 vans, then a fleet. It wasn't a lottery win. It was boring, consistent growth. The kind no one believes in until it's too big to ignore. The day I bought a house, nothing mansion-y, just solid and mine, I posted one picture, my son holding the keys, grinning like he'd won a trophy. An hour later, my ex-wife called. Not texted, called. Her voice was sugary. "Hey, I saw the post. Congrats. That's really nice." "Thanks," I said, already suspicious. Long pause. Then, "So listen, my lease is ending and the market is insane. I was thinking maybe I could stay with you for a bit. For our son's sake." I almost choked. "You still have the condo." "Yeah, but I refinanced," she began, then caught herself. "It's complicated." I pictured the condo I'd paid for, the one she fought like hell to keep. "No," I said. "You can't stay here." Her sweetness evaporated. "You're being petty." "I'm being safe," I replied. "You don't get to take the roof and then ask to borrow it back." Then she hit me with the line that made my stomach turn. "It's not fair you get to be rich now after I carried you." I looked at my son's shoes by the door, the ones Lena had picked out because kids deserve comfort. "You didn't carry me," I said. "You dropped me." She went quiet, like she couldn't compute a world where the man she discarded didn't stay discarded. And when she finally hung up, I swear I could hear her pride cracking through the phone. Story 3. My wife didn't just take everything. She made sure everyone knew it. She posted vague quotes about choosing peace and surviving narcissists, while I carried my clothes out in trash bags. At mediation, she demanded the house and half my future commission earnings. Her lawyer smirked like it was a sport. I walked away numb, not because I didn't care, because caring was a luxury I couldn't afford anymore. I picked up gig work, deliveries, odd jobs, anything that paid same day. One afternoon, I delivered lunch to a real estate office. A guy there saw my beat-up shoes and asked if I could help him move staging furniture after hours. I said yes. He paid cash and offered more work. Turns out, staging and cleanouts are a gold mine when you're willing to sweat. Within months, I had a small crew. Within a year, investors were calling me directly because I didn't complain, didn't disappear, and didn't break their stuff. Then I started buying the junk I cleaned out. Furniture, antiques, weird collectibles, and reselling. I learned quickly. I got sharper. 3 years after my divorce, I accidentally went viral on TikTok for a before-after cleanout. Investors flooded my inbox. My company scaled fast. Too fast. I hired a real accountant, signed real contracts, became that guy with spreadsheets and meetings. My ex found out when a local newspaper did a fluff piece. Former delivery driver builds six-figure cleanup business. They used a photo of me standing in front of my truck. That weekend, she showed up at our child exchange wearing sunglasses and a smile that didn't reach her cheeks. "Wow," she said, like she was tasting the word. "So you're doing well?" I nodded, kept buckling our daughter into her seat. My ex leaned closer. "I've been thinking, maybe we rushed the divorce. We were under pressure." I finally looked at her. "You weren't under pressure. You were under control." Her smile twitched. "Don't do that. I'm trying to be mature." "Mature would have been not emptying our daughter's college account," I said. Her sunglasses came off fast. "I put that money back after the judge ordered you to," I replied. She went red. Then, in the most pathetic pivot I've ever heard, she whispered, "So, are you dating?" I closed the car door gently. "Yes." Her face crumpled like she'd been slapped. "Already? After everything?" I shrugged. "After everything you took? I didn't have room to keep your ghost too." She stood there in the parking lot gripping her sunglasses so hard I thought they'd snap, watching my truck pull away like it was stealing the life she thought she'd confiscated. Story 4. When my wife left, she didn't just take the assets. She took the narrative. She told my parents I cheated. I didn't. She told our friends I gambled. I didn't. She told the court I financially controlled her because I asked her not to buy designer bags on my single salary. The settlement was brutal. She got the house and most of my retirement. I got a small payout of equity and the privilege of starting over at 37. I moved into a tiny rental, ate cereal for dinner, and tried to be a good dad on alternating weeks. I kept thinking, how can someone ruin you and still look proud? Then something weird happened. My job offered a voluntary relocation package. Good money if I moved to a smaller city and took on a messy project nobody wanted. Everyone avoided it because it was a disaster. I said yes. The project was chaos. But chaos is opportunity if you're the only person willing to stand in it. I learned supply chains, vendor negotiations, cost cutting, the whole ugly back end of business. I became the guy who fixed problems and they promoted me fast. 2 years later, I was head of operations. 5 years later, I had stock options. When the company got acquired, those options turned into holy crap money. I didn't post about it. I didn't brag. I just bought a modest home and paid off my parents' mortgage quietly. My ex found out through our son. Kids talk. "Dad has a new house and it has a pool," he told her, innocent. The next pickup, she arrived early and waited by my driveway like she owned the place. She walked around my car, my porch, my mailbox, scanning for proof. When I stepped outside, she forced a laugh. "So you're rich now?" I blinked. "I'm comfortable." She crossed her arms. "Funny how you couldn't do that when we were married." That sentence hit like a brick. All the nights I worked late. All the "we can't afford that" arguments. All the times she mocked my small ambitions. "I could have," I said calmly. "But I was busy carrying someone who kept throwing rocks in the backpack." Her eyes narrowed. "You're implying I held you back?" "I'm stating it." She stepped closer, voice dropping. "If you have money, you should increase support. You owe us." "I support my son," I said. "Not your lifestyle." Then she did something I'll never forget. She smiled, like she had a new angle. "Maybe we can renegotiate our relationship." I laughed out loud this time. Her face hardened instantly. "You think you're better than me?" "No," I said. "I think I'm finally out of your reach." She stood there shaking, looking around at my house like it betrayed her. And when she drove off, she peeled out so hard her tires squealed, like anger could reverse time. Story 5. My wife took everything and acted like she deserved a trophy for it. She cleaned out the accounts, kept the ring, kept the family heirlooms, and even insisted on keeping my grandmother's piano because it matches the house. I didn't fight her. That's the part people don't understand. I didn't fight because I was ashamed. Not of her, of myself. I'd ignored red flags for years because I thought love meant enduring disrespect. After the divorce, I moved into a cheap place above a mechanic shop. Every morning smelled like oil and regret. I told myself I'd just survive. Then the mechanic downstairs asked if I could help him with the computer stuff for his invoices. I did it in an hour. He paid me with cash and a free oil change. The next day, his cousin wanted help, then a neighbor, then a small business owner. Within months, I was freelancing. Basic systems, booking software, security cameras, automation. I wasn't some Silicon Valley genius. I was just the guy who answered calls and didn't talk down to people. A year later, I had more work than I could handle. 2 years later, I had employees. 3 years later, a bigger company bought my client list and offered a partnership. Suddenly, I had real money. I didn't buy flashy things. I bought peace. I bought time. I bought a house with a room for that piano my ex stole, because I found the same model online and restored it myself. And then, on the most random Tuesday, she texted, "Hey, can we talk? I'm proud of you." I stared at the screen like it was a joke. She followed up with, "I've been going through a hard time. My boyfriend turned out to be nothing like you. I miss stability." There it was. Not, "I miss you." Stability. I didn't answer. So she escalated. She showed up at my front door that weekend in a coat she couldn't afford when we were married. Eyes shiny like she'd practiced crying in the mirror. "I didn't know you'd become this," she said, looking past me into my home like she was appraising it. "What do you want?" I asked. She took a breath. "I want us back. I want the life we were supposed to have. The life where you took everything and called it self-care." Her mouth tightened. "You're still mad." "No," I said. "I'm cured." She flinched like that word hurt. "So you're really going to let me struggle?" I leaned on the doorframe. "You didn't struggle when I was sleeping on a mattress on the floor." Her eyes went cold. "You think you're so special now because you have money?" I smiled. "No. I think I'm special because I learned what you are when money is the only language you speak." She stormed off, heels clicking like gunshots down my walkway, furious that the man she stripped down didn't stay small enough to crawl back to her. Story 6. My wife didn't just take everything. She turned it into a performance. She brought a moving crew while I was at work, then texted me a picture of the empty living room. Fresh start. In court, she cried about emotional labor, and the judge basically handed her the house, most of our savings, and my pride in a neat little folder. I moved into a one-bedroom with a view of a brick wall. I stopped talking to people because every conversation ended with the same pitying tone. The only thing I kept was my old laptop and the habit of working when I couldn't sleep. Out of boredom and spite, I started learning how to run ads online. Not influencer stuff, boring business ads. I offered to help a local plumber for free just to practice. His phone started ringing. He told another guy, then another. Suddenly, my evenings became a second job. 6 months later, I quit my day job. 2 years later, I had contracts with clinics, car dealerships, even a small chain of gyms. It wasn't glamorous, but the numbers stacked up. The moment I hit my first 7-figure year, I didn't celebrate. I just sat in my car and laughed until I scared myself. My ex found out when she tried to refinance the house and the bank asked about my income for verification. She called me like we were old friends. "Hey, so, random question," she said. "What do you do now?" "I work," I replied. She laughed too hard. "No, like, what's your title?" I could hear her flipping a story in her head, searching for an angle where she was still the main character. When I didn't help her, she showed up at my office later that week. Hair perfect, smile practiced. "Look at you," she said, eyes scanning the place like it was her new home. "I always knew you had potential." I leaned back. "You took the house because you thought I'd never have another one." Her smile froze. "That's not fair. That's accurate." Then she said the quiet part out loud. "If you're rich now, why are you still making me pay for repairs? You could just cover it." I stared at her, genuinely amazed. "You didn't take everything because you needed it," I said. "You took it so I wouldn't." Her voice sharpened. "So you're punishing me?" "No," I said. "I'm just not rescuing you from the life you built." She left angry, but it wasn't the loud anger that stuck with me. It was the way she looked back at the door, like she couldn't believe it didn't open for her anymore. Story 7. She wiped me out and called it justice. The divorce agreement read like a hostage note. She got the car, the furniture, half my pension, and the right to sell the house immediately. I got my tools and a mattress. The first year after that, I lived like a ghost. Work, eat, sleep, repeat. I didn't date, didn't go out, didn't even buy new clothes. I just saved. Then a coworker offered me a side gig, installing smart locks and cameras for wealthy clients. I noticed the same thing every time. These people had money, but their contractors were sloppy, late, rude, careless. So I started doing it on my own. Quietly, professionally, like it mattered. One client asked if I could automate her whole house. Another wanted a security overhaul. Another asked for a recommendation to her friend who owned a boutique hotel. Within a year, I had more referrals than I could handle. I formed a company, hired 2 guys, then 5, then a manager. Suddenly, I was the security tech for people who owned more square footage than my entire childhood neighborhood. The day I bought a watch, my first real luxury purchase, I felt sick, like I was committing a crime. Then I remembered my ex wearing my credit card like a crown. The nausea turned into calm. She found out at our child handoff when my son ran up yelling, "Dad, are we still going on the trip?" Her head snapped up. "Trip? To Italy," my son said, innocent as sunlight. "Dad said we're going." Her face changed so fast it was scary. After my son ran inside, she stepped close and whispered, "Must be nice to finally have money." I shrugged. "It is?" She smirked. "So you can afford to be generous now." "With him," I said. "With me," she corrected, like it was obvious. I laughed once. Short. Mean. Her eyes flashed. "You're disgusting. You always wanted to feel superior." "No," I said. "You wanted me to feel inferior. There's a difference." Then she tried a softer tone, like switching masks. "Maybe we can reset. We had good times." I looked at her, really looked. All I saw was a woman standing in the ruins she sold and wondering why it didn't include a staircase back up. "We didn't have good times," I said. "You had good times." I had excuses. She stood there, frozen, while I closed the door. And for the first time, I knew she understood. My success wasn't her comeback story. It was her permanent exit. Story 8. My wife took everything because she could. That was the simplest, ugliest truth. She had the better lawyer, the louder voice, and the talent of sounding hurt while swinging a hammer. She kept the business I helped build, our little bakery. Not because she loved baking, because she loved winning. She made sure my name was removed from everything and told customers I abandoned the family. So I started over. I got a job delivering ingredients to restaurants. Flour, sugar, chocolate, watching other people create while I hauled boxes. It was humiliating. But it also taught me the supply side. Who overpaid, who wasted, who negotiated smart. I started buying wholesale for small cafes on the side, connecting them with cheaper suppliers. It snowballed. I built a distribution route, then a small warehouse. I wasn't baking anymore. I was feeding the whole damn city's sweet tooth. 2 years later, a regional chain offered to buy my contracts. I didn't sell. I expanded. When inflation hit and everyone panicked, I stayed steady, because I'd already lived through panic in my personal life. Then my ex showed up at my warehouse, not to congratulate me, to complain. She walked in like she owned the air. "You're stealing my customers," she snapped. I blinked. "They were never yours. You rent their loyalty with coupons." Her face tightened. "You're doing this to hurt me." "No," I said. "I'm doing this because I'm good at it." She laughed, bitter. "Must be nice to get rich off my hard work?" I stared at her. "Your hard work? You mean the work I did while you posted cupcake photos?" That hit. Her eyes watered instantly. Not real sadness, more like rage leaking out. She leaned closer and hissed, "If you have money, you should help the bakery. It's struggling." I looked at the shelves stacked with pallets, the forklifts moving like clockwork, the employees laughing in the break area. Then I looked back at her perfect hair and desperate eyes. "You didn't take the bakery because you needed it," I said quietly. "You took it because you needed me to not have it." Her lips trembled. "So you're going to let me fail?" I smiled, gentle and cruel. "You already let me fail. I just refused." She stormed out. Outside, she kicked a trash can so hard it fell over. The sound echoed through my warehouse like applause. Story 9. She took everything and I let her, because fighting her felt like wrestling smoke. She was charming in public, venomous in private, and the divorce was her stage. After she got the house and the accounts, she posted, "God removed what was blocking my blessings." People commented hearts. I stared at my empty apartment and wondered if I was the block. I worked a job I hated and started investing tiny amounts, $50 here, $100 there, just to feel like I was building something that couldn't be taken by a judge's signature. Mostly boring index funds. But one day I noticed a small company in an industry I understood. I researched it obsessively. I didn't get lucky once. I got lucky repeatedly because I did the unsexy thing. I waited. I learned. I didn't panic. Then I got offered an overseas role at work. Higher pay, hardship bonus, crazy hours. I took it, lived cheap, invested the difference. 5 years of that turned into a portfolio big enough to make my hands shake when I opened the app. When I finally came home, I didn't look like a rich guy. I still wore the same boots. But I bought a small building downtown and turned the ground floor into a gym for my brother's struggling training business. My ex discovered it because my name was on the property records. She called at midnight like a ghost returning to a haunted house. "So it's true," she said. "You have money." I yawned. "It's late." She ignored that. "I'm proud. I always knew you were capable." I just needed you to wake up. The audacity made me laugh. She snapped. What's funny? You're talking like you were my coach, I said. You were my car crash. Silence. Then her voice softened into a plea. Listen, I made mistakes, but we were a team once. No, I said. You were a team of one. I was the equipment. Her breathing turned sharp. So you're just going to leave me behind? I looked around my quiet apartment, peaceful and mine. You left first, I said. She started crying. Real or not, I couldn't tell. I'm struggling. Rent is insane. My new guy is... I cut her off. I'm not your emergency fund anymore. She whispered, furious. You're punishing me. I hung up. The next day, she emailed me a long letter about fate and love and second chances. I deleted it without reading past the first paragraph. Because I'd learned something. The richest thing I owned wasn't money. It was the ability to say no and mean it. Story 10. My wife took everything after 16 years. Not because she was heartless, because she was strategic. She waited until my promotion came through, then filed. She emptied the accounts, froze the credit cards, and left me a note on the counter like we were roommates. Don't make this ugly. It got ugly anyway. She painted me as selfish. She told the court she sacrificed her career for mine. She didn't mention the part where she quit 3 jobs because her managers didn't respect her. After the dust settled, I had child support, a rented room, and a silence so loud it felt like tinnitus. I poured that silence into work. I stopped scrolling, stopped drinking, stopped chasing comfort. I became relentless. I took certifications at night, volunteered for the assignments everyone avoided, and built relationships with the people who actually ran the place. One day, a director pulled me aside and said, "You're the only person here who solves problems without needing applause." That became my superpower. 2 years later, I got recruited by a competitor. Bigger salary, stock options, signing bonus. I kept living like I was broke and let the difference pile up. Then, the company went public. My options exploded. Suddenly, comfortable became wealthy. My ex found out when she saw a photo of me at a charity event. My new partner beside me, both of us in normal suits, nothing flashy. But she recognized the backdrop, a venue she used to dream about posting from. She texted, "So you're rich now? Interesting." I didn't answer. She called. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you're not my spouse anymore," I said. Her voice sharpened. "You owe me transparency. We share a child. We share custody," I corrected. Then she did the thing she always did when she felt control slipping. She tried to rewrite history. "If you were this ambitious when we were together, I wouldn't have left," I laughed. "If you were loyal when we were together, I wouldn't have had to become this." She went quiet, then whispered, "So you really moved on." I looked at my calendar. My kids' school play circled, dinner with my partner, a meeting that mattered, a life that wasn't built around surviving her moods. "Yes," I said. "Completely." Her voice broke into anger. "You think you won?" "No," I replied. "I think you bet against me, and now you hate the odds." She hung up. 10 minutes later, she sent a final text. "You'll regret being cold." I stared at it, then blocked her. Because the truth is, the day she took everything, she taught me the one lesson that made me rich. Stop begging people to value you. Story 11. My wife took everything in a way that felt almost surgical. She didn't scream, didn't throw dishes, didn't even cry. She just waited until I left for a work trip, then changed the locks, emptied the joint account, and emailed me a spreadsheet titled Separation Logistics. I showed up with a suitcase and saw my own coat hanging inside the window like a trophy I wasn't allowed to touch. She stood behind the glass, calm, and spoke through the door like I was a stranger. "Don't make a scene." In court, she played the wounded saint. "I just want security," she whispered. The judge nodded. Security for her meant my savings, my car, and the house I painted myself on weekends. I walked away with debt and a humiliating list of responsibilities. I moved into a basement apartment and spent a month eating noodles in silence. Then one night, I opened the spreadsheet again, not to cry, but to study it. She'd itemized everything, every asset, every weakness. So I did the first thing that made me feel powerful. I made my own spreadsheet, a plan, a budget, a timeline. I started consulting on the side, process improvement for small companies. The kind of work nobody brags about because it's boring. But boring pays if you fix expensive problems. One client became 3. 3 became 10. I raised my rates until my hands shook when I said the number. Then watched people agree anyway. 2 years later, I bought a small office. 4 years later, I sold my first contract that had 6 zeros. My ex found out when my name appeared on a local top 40 under 40 list. She didn't text. She came in person, standing outside my office building like she was waiting to be picked up. When I walked out, she smiled like it was date night. You look different, she said. I nodded. Less stressed. Her smile tightened. So, it's true. You're doing really well. And? She blinked, thrown off by the lack of applause. I'm glad. We went through a lot. We did, I agreed. She leaned closer, voice lowering. I'm struggling. Things are expensive. And you. There it was. The reach. The grab. I'm not your plan B, I said. Her face flickered, then snapped to irritation. Wow, you're still bitter. I shrugged. You taught me spreadsheets. I learned to stop giving away assets. She stared at me like she'd been slapped, then hissed. So you got rich just to punish me? No, I said, stepping back. I got rich because you made me realize I was the only one who'd ever save me. Her eyes went glossy with rage, and she walked away too fast, heels clicking like she was running from the sound of her own mistake. Story 12. My wife took everything because her father funded the lawyer. That's the part nobody says out loud. Money buys confidence. It buys time. It buys a professional voice that makes you sound right even when you're cruel. She got the house. She got the savings. She got the car. I got the couch at my brother's place and the pleasure of hearing, "You'll recover," from people who never had to. I started driving rideshare at night. One night I picked up a drunk guy who wouldn't stop bragging about his crypto mining facility. I almost laughed, until he showed me pictures of racks, fans, real equipment. He wasn't a genius. He was just early and relentless. I went home and fell into a rabbit hole. Not the hype, logistics, electricity rates, hardware depreciation, cooling. I realized something. Most people were gambling. A few were building businesses. I found a cheap warehouse in an industrial zone, negotiated with the owner, and partnered with a friend who understood electrical work. We started small. 2 rigs, then 10, then 50. It was ugly, loud, hot, but it printed money in a way that felt almost illegal. I reinvested everything, lived like a monk, and scaled. When my wife heard about it, she didn't call me reckless anymore. She called me inspiring. She showed up at custody exchange wearing a warm smile and a new perfume like she'd chosen it for nostalgia. I'm happy for you, she said, voice too sweet. Maybe you can teach me how you did it. I didn't answer. I buckled our kid in and closed the door. She followed me to my car window. Come on, don't be childish. We were partners once. Partners don't empty accounts, I said. Her smile dropped. You were going nowhere. I did what I had to do, and I did what I had to do, I replied. She stared at the steering wheel, then looked up fast, eyes sharp. So you're rich now, and you're just going to let me struggle? The entitlement almost impressed me. You have the house, I said. She scoffed. That house is expensive. Repairs, taxes. It's not like you think. I leaned closer, quiet. Sell it. Her eyes widened like the idea was obscene. That's my security. Exactly, I said. You chose security over me, so be secure without me. Her mouth opened, then closed. She backed away like I'd suddenly become someone she didn't recognize. And for the first time, I saw it clearly. She didn't want me back. She wanted the version of me she thought she owned. Story 13. My wife took everything and then tried to keep taking. That was her real talent, making demands sound like needs. After the divorce, she got the house and most of the money. Then she started emailing about additional support, school supplies, clothes, unexpected expenses, always written like I should feel grateful she allowed me to contribute. I paid, not because she deserved it, because my daughter deserved peace. I started a second job in IT help desk. It was miserable, but I noticed something. Small businesses were bleeding money on bad systems. Everyone complained about tech, but nobody fixed it. So I started fixing it. I built a simple service. Monthly fee, I keep your systems running, no drama. I answered calls at midnight, drove across town for server crashes, and learned to talk to angry owners without flinching. It grew fast because reliability is rare. By year 3, I had clients I couldn't even fit into my calendar. I hired staff, built processes, and suddenly my side hustle became a real company. Then my company got acquired. Not a sexy story. No lottery ticket. Just an email from a larger firm. We want to buy you. The payout hit my account and I stared at the number until my vision blurred. My ex found out when she tried to drag me back to court for more money. She walked into mediation confident, lips glossy, lawyer in tow, until her own lawyer leaned over and whispered something to her. Her face went pale. What? She hissed, loud enough for everyone to hear. The mediator cleared his throat. Mr. I has experienced a change in financial status, yes. My ex snapped her head toward me like I'd betrayed her personally. When were you going to tell me? I told the court what I was required to, I said. She leaned forward, eyes bright with greed. Then we need to revise support. You can afford more, the mediator nodded slightly. Support may be adjusted. She smiled. Too early. Then my lawyer slid a document across the table. Also, she said, we're requesting an audit of the prior unexpected expenses receipts. My ex froze. What receipts? Exactly, my lawyer replied. The mediator's eyebrows rose. My ex's lawyer suddenly looked sick. My ex stammered. Those were real. We'll find out, my lawyer said. My ex's confidence collapsed like a chair with a missing leg. She glared at me, whispering, You're doing this because you hate me. I leaned back. I'm doing this because I finally have the money to stop letting you bully me. Her hands shook as she gathered her papers. She didn't look like a winner anymore. She looked like someone realizing the game might get played both ways. Story 14. My wife took everything and left me with one insult that stuck in my throat for years. You're not the kind of man who gets rich. She said it casually, like a diagnosis. Like the doctor just confirmed I'd never walk again. I believed her for too long. After the divorce, I rented a tiny room and worked construction. My body hurt. My ego hurt worse. But one day the site manager asked if anyone knew how to read blueprints and manage schedules. Everyone went quiet. I raised my hand. Turns out I was good at management. Not because I loved control, because I hated chaos. I kept crews on time, cut waste, negotiated materials. I started getting offers from other sites. More pay, more responsibility. Then an older contractor pulled me aside and said, You ever thought about bidding your own jobs? I laughed. I don't have capital. He shrugged. You don't need capital. You need a reputation. So I started small. Kitchens, bathrooms, repairs. I did clean work and kept my word. Word spread the old-fashioned way. Neighbors talking, realtors recommending, clients bragging. 3 years later, I was running a renovation company with 6 crews. 5 years later, I was building small apartment blocks. The first time I signed a contract with 7 figures, my hand trembled. Not from fear. Chack revenge. Because I remembered her voice. You're not the kind who gets rich. My ex found out at our kids' school fundraiser. She saw my company logo on the sponsorship banner. She walked up slow, like she was approaching a wild animal. Is that your company? She asked. Yeah, I said. She blinked rapidly. Wow, I didn't know you had it in you. There was that old insult again, disguised as a compliment. She tried to laugh. Guess I motivated you. I leaned in, quiet. You didn't motivate me. You humiliated me. Her smile slipped. I didn't mean... Yes, you did. Her eyes darted around the gym, worried someone might hear. Can we talk somewhere private? I looked at the parents, the teachers, my kid running with friends. No, I said. Public is fine. You like public. Her face flushed. So you're rich now and you want me to feel small. I shook my head. I want you to feel accurate. She stood there, stunned, like reality had finally caught up and slapped her. And when the auction started, she didn't bid on anything, just sat rigid in her chair, staring at the banner like it was a billboard for every decision she couldn't undo. Story 15. My wife took everything because she thought I'd fold. She said it out loud during the divorce. He won't rebuild. He's too sentimental. She was right about one thing. I was sentimental. I kept old photos, old letters, old habits. I loved the idea of us long after she stopped respecting the man inside it. When she left, she took the house, the accounts, the furniture. She even took my grandfather's watch and claimed it was a gift. I felt hollow. So I did something impulsive. I left town. I took a contract job on an oil project overseas. Brutal hours, isolation, hazard pay. I told myself it was temporary, just enough to get stable. But the money was addictive because it was clean. Earned. Nobody could argue it was ours. I worked 2 years straight, saved everything, and came home with enough to start investing seriously. I bought boring properties, small rentals near colleges. I fixed them myself. I raised rent slowly, kept tenants happy, kept everything legal. It wasn't flashy, but it multiplied. By the time my ex heard I had money, I wasn't just okay. I was wealthy in a quiet, invisible way. She called like she was checking in on a neighbor. Hey, she said, soft. I heard you're doing well. I'm fine, I replied. She paused. So, about the watch. I still have it. I was thinking maybe we could meet and talk. I almost laughed. The watch wasn't about nostalgia. It was about leverage. We met at a cafe. She arrived wearing a smile and a sadness costume. She slid the watch across the table like an offering. I'm sorry, she whispered. I wasn't myself. I picked it up. The weight of it in my palm felt like my grandfather's hand. She watched my face carefully. I miss you, she said, and I miss what we had. I put the watch on, clasped it, and looked at her. You didn't miss me when you took it. Her eyes watered. I didn't know you'd become this. I leaned back. I didn't either. She reached across the table. Maybe we can... No, I said, calm as winter. Her tears stopped instantly, like a switch. Her voice turned sharp. So you just wanted the watch? I smiled. I wanted what was mine. That's something you taught me. Her jaw clenched. You're rich now and you're still petty. I stood up. I'm rich now, and I'm finally immune. She sat there frozen, staring at my wrist like it was a verdict. And as I walked out, I realized the richest thing I owned wasn't the properties. It was the moment I stopped being sentimental about someone who only loved me when I was useful. Story 16. My wife took everything and then tried to take my dignity as a souvenir. The day the divorce finalized, she texted, "No hard feelings. We both deserve happiness." 10 minutes later, she posted a selfie in my old kitchen with the caption, "New chapter, new me." I moved into a tiny apartment and tried to rebuild in silence. Then I got laid off. Perfect timing, right? I had two choices, panic or get mean. I chose mean. A friend offered me a job doing sales for a boring industrial supplier. Bolts, valves, safety gear. The pay was commission-based, so if I failed loudly. I learned fast. Most salespeople chased big clients and ignored the small ones. So I did the opposite. I took every annoying account no one wanted. 6 months later, those annoying accounts were my goldmine. They trusted me. They referred me. One big client followed, then another. When the company got acquired, I negotiated a cut because I'd basically built an entire region's revenue. I walked out with money that didn't feel real. My ex found out when she saw my name on a donor plaque at our kids' school. She cornered me in the hallway like we were in high school. "Wow," she said, eyes wide. "So you're rich now?" I shrugged. "Comfortable." She laughed, but it sounded tight. "Must be nice." "I guess you finally learned how to hustle." I smiled. "I learned how to stop funding people who don't respect me." Her face hardened. "That's a shot." "It's a fact," I said. She stepped closer, voice dropping. "You know, we could have had this together." I looked at her and saw the real grief, not for me, but for the lifestyle she thought she secured by gutting me. She whispered, "I'm drowning in expenses." I nodded once. "You wanted everything." "Congratulations." Her eyes flashed. "So you won't help?" I turned to leave. "You didn't help me when I was unemployed. Why would I help you now that I'm employed? By my own choices." She stood there, shaking, then snapped. "You changed." I glanced back. "Yeah, that was the point." Story 17. She took everything because she assumed I'd beg. She wanted the begging, wanted to watch me shrink. In mediation, she leaned over and said, "Just sign. You'll never be anything without me anyway." I signed. Because I was tired. Because I had nothing left to prove to a woman who treated love like a scoreboard. I moved into my cousin's spare room and started driving deliveries. One night, I delivered to a wedding venue. Fancy place. The manager complained the florist was late, the caterer missed an item, the DJ ghosted. The chaos was insane. I asked, half joking, "Does this happen often?" She laughed bitterly. "Every weekend." That planted a seed. I'd always been weirdly good at logistics, schedules, checklists, calm under pressure. So I started offering a day of coordination service for small events. Cheap at first. Then I got reviews. Then referrals. Within a year, I had a small team. We weren't planners. We were fixers. We prevented disasters. People paid a lot to not have their big day ruined. A local influencer tagged us in a post after we saved her baby shower from a power outage. Overnight, my inbox exploded. By year 3, I had contracts with multiple venues and a waitlist. I hired more staff, raised prices, and, without even realizing it, became rich. Not celebrity rich. Just, I don't check my bank balance before groceries rich. My ex found out because one of her friends hired my company for a corporate gala. That friend posted photos with my logo on the backdrop. My ex called me at 1 a.m. "Is it true?" she demanded. "What? That you're running some event thing and making real money?" I yawned. "Yes." Silence. Then her voice softened like she was trying on a new personality. "That's amazing. I'm proud of you." I almost laughed. "You told me I'd never be anything." I was hurt, she said quickly. "People say things. People say truth when they're comfortable," I replied. Her tone sharpened. "So you're just going to be petty?" "Petty would be begging you to notice," I said. "I'm past that." She paused, then whispered, "I made a mistake." There it was. The script. I said, "You didn't make a mistake. You made a decision." Her breathing turned angry. "So what, you're punishing me?" I smiled into the dark. "No. I'm just not letting you benefit from insulting me into becoming better." She hung up. 10 minutes later, she texted, "You'll regret this." I didn't. My calendar the next day was full of weddings and people who actually thanked me for showing up. Story 18. My wife took everything and moved her new boyfriend into my house before the ink was dry. That was the kind of petty cruelty that makes you feel like you're living in someone else's prank. My friends wanted me to fight. I couldn't. I felt hollow. I got a small apartment and avoided driving past my old neighborhood because seeing their cars in my driveway felt like acid. Then my mom got sick. Hospital bills. Treatments. Suddenly, starting over wasn't a metaphor. It was a deadline. I took a second job at a call center. It was soul-killing. But I noticed something. Half the calls were from businesses that didn't understand their own phone systems. They were losing customers because people couldn't even reach them. I started learning telecom systems at night. I got certified. Then I offered to optimize call routing and customer support for small businesses. My first client was a dental office. They went from constant complaints to smooth scheduling in 2 weeks. They told a friend. That friend told a bigger friend. Within 2 years, I was consulting for regional chains. I built a small software layer that tracked missed calls and automatically sent follow-ups. That little tool became my gold. A larger tech firm offered to buy it. I sold, negotiated a royalty, and suddenly I had money that made my mom cry when I told her she'd never see another bill. My ex found out when she tried to shame me online, posted a throwback photo of us with a caption about surviving. People in the comments started congratulating me for my success. She called instantly, voice sharp. "Why are people saying you're rich?" I said. "Because I am." She went quiet. Then she laughed brittle. "Wow, so you were capable the whole time." I heard jealousy in every syllable. She tried to pivot. "Listen, things haven't been easy for me either. The market is crazy. My boyfriend," I cut her off. "The guy you moved into my house?" She snapped. "Don't be immature." "Immature is taking everything and still asking for more," I said. Her voice turned sweet again, like poison and honey. "We should meet." For closure, I pictured her face in my old kitchen, the way she smiled when she thought I'd never recover. "You already got closure," I replied. "It was in the settlement." She hissed. "So you're just going to let me struggle while you live like a king?" I smiled. "You wanted the castle. I built a different kingdom." She screamed something I didn't catch and hung up. Later that night, I drove my mom home from chemo in my new car and realized the best revenge wasn't getting rich. It was getting rich for reasons she could never touch. Story 19. My wife took everything because she knew where my soft spots were. She knew I hated conflict. She knew I'd rather lose money than lose peace. She weaponized that. The divorce was quick. Too quick. I signed things I shouldn't have signed. I walked out with a duffel bag and a stomach full of regret. For a while, I stayed small on purpose. I worked my job, kept my head down, tried to be a good dad. Then my boss asked me to lead a project nobody wanted, fixing a failing department. It was messy, political, exhausting. But something in me snapped. I thought, if I'm going to suffer, I'm going to profit. I rebuilt the team, cut waste, negotiated new vendor deals, and made the numbers climb. Upper management noticed. Promotions followed. Then a recruiter called with an offer from a competitor. Double salary plus equity. I took it. 2 years later, the competitor got acquired. My equity turned into a payout that made my hands shake when I saw the deposit. I didn't tell anyone except my lawyer and my kid. I still drove an old car. I still lived modestly. I just stopped worrying about what if. My ex found out the way she found out everything, through gossip. A mutual friend let it slip at a party. She called me the next morning, voice trembling with fake cheer. "So I heard you're doing well," I said. "I'm fine," she pushed. "No, like, really well." I stayed quiet. She sighed dramatically. "You know, it's wild. When we were married, you acted like money didn't matter." "It didn't," I said. "Love did." She ignored that. "I just think it's unfair that you're rich now and I'm struggling." I almost laughed. "You have the house." She snapped. "That house is a burden." There it was. The moment she admitted her prize wasn't as shiny as she thought. She lowered her voice. "Maybe we can revisit things. Not just money. Us." I said. "No." Her tone instantly turned ugly. "You're still punishing me for leaving." I replied, calm. "I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting myself." She breathed hard. "So what, you think you're better than me now?" I paused. "I think I'm safer without you." She hung up and 30 seconds later sent a long text about how I was cold and selfish and financially abusive. I stared at it, then deleted it. Because the richest thing I'd gained wasn't the money. It was the ability to watch her try to rewrite history and not volunteer to be the villain anymore. Story 20. My wife took everything and celebrated like she'd won a championship. She invited friends over the weekend after I moved out and posted stories of wine glasses clinking in the living room I used to vacuum. I lived in a rented room with a mattress on the floor. Every night I thought, how does someone take your life and still sleep? I got lucky in the most unromantic way. My uncle died and left me a rundown auto shop. Not money, a problem. A leaking roof, outdated equipment, and 2 employees who looked at me like I was a joke. I considered selling it immediately, then remembered my wife's face when she said, "You're not a leader," so I kept it. I learned the business from the ground up. I worked the counter, answered phones, swept floors, watched YouTube tutorials at night. I modernized everything. Online booking, transparent pricing, warranties. People started trusting us because I treated them like humans, not wallets. The shop turned profitable, then really profitable. Then I opened a second location, then a third. 5 years after sleeping on that mattress, I owned 3 shops and a small fleet service contract with a delivery company. That contract alone changed my life. My ex found out when she brought her car to one of my locations, by accident. She walked in and saw my name on the wall. Owner, __. She froze like the air got knocked out of her. "Is this a joke?" she whispered. I stepped out from the back in a work shirt with grease on my hands. "Not a joke." Her mouth opened and closed. "So you're rich?" I shrugged. "I'm doing fine." She looked around, eyes darting, calculating. "Wow, I can't believe you did this." I smiled. "Neither can I." Then she tried to charm me, voice soft. "Maybe we can talk sometime. You know, we were family." I leaned on the counter. "You threw a party in my old living room the day I left." Her cheeks flushed. I was coping. "With champagne?" I asked. Her jaw tightened. "You're still bitter." I shook my head. "No, I'm just not blind anymore." She stood there, trembling with a mix of shock and anger, like she'd walked into a world where her victory didn't matter. And when she finally asked, "So are you going to fix my car for free?" I laughed. "No, ma'am. We charge everyone." Her face twisted like she'd tasted poison. Then she spun on her heel and walked out, furious that the man she tried to erase was now the one holding the receipt.